Welcome back to the Louis Selling YouTube channel. We are back again with another Midweek Fixture Podcast. It is Season 2, Episode 6 today. Of course, we are with Annabel once again, and we're going to be talking about Brighton's women's new stadium that is set to be complete for the 2030-31 season. So let's jump straight into this one. Annabel, how are you this afternoon?
Yeah, I'm really well, thank you. Really looking forward to talking about this news. Obviously, there was a big event yesterday at the Amex, which unfortunately I couldn't get to for personal reasons. But yeah, it should be really exciting to discuss this new development.
Yeah, I mean, you must be absolutely buzzing with this, considering you do all of your reporting, all your commentary, so on and so forth. I've been with the Brighton's women team for 4 years?
Yeah, since 2023 I started writing for Sussex World, and then this season co-commentating on their games. So yeah, literally a few years now, about 3 years.
Yeah, 3-4 years. So yeah, most of this episode is probably going to be Annabel talking quite a lot because she knows a lot more about it than me. But just having a quick look at it myself, reading on the report that Brighton put out, it looks like it's going to be a minimum of 10,000. So we'll start there. Capacity 10,000. That seems about right, in my opinion, looking from the outside in. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that sounds about right. I think because obviously it's 2030 when it's coming into play, not as early as we thought with the initial plans to be 2027, because it had some complications with getting the ground sorted with the council, which seems like it's all fixed now. But yeah, I think because of it's quite a while away, hopefully by then the club will have grown their fan base, both at Broadfield and then expanding some of their games. Next season there's going to be around 4 to 6 at the Amex. So you're hoping with more games at the Amex, it will bring more fans in. Obviously, if the quality is as good as it has been recently for Brighton Women, then that'll also attract more fans for next season and as their project develops. And then, yeah, I think around 10,000 will make sense because I know Paul Barber, who's the chief executive and chairman of Brighton, he basically said that he wants it to be sold out and to produce a really strong atmosphere. And I think by 2030, hopefully that will be the case where you might have some men's fans who also get involved, but also I think the women's game is quite distinct in terms of their fan base to the men's fans. So hopefully just more women's fans will grow from somewhere. I mean, Brighton's a really busy city and very multicultural. So hopefully there might be lots of different demographic of fans who will come in and try and get attracted to the women's football. And that will grow, as you say, into hopefully a 10,000 capacity. But there is a lot of work to do, I imagine, from how it is now currently. I mean, at Broadfield they get around 2,200 fans roughly, sometimes around 3,000 if it's like a big game against like a United or somewhere, or Arsenal for example, because they bring quite a lot of their fans down from London to Crawley. And then at the Amex they're still trying to break that record of 8,000. It was 8,600 that they got against Manchester United a few years ago, and they haven't been able to break that yet. So yeah, around 8,000 they get at the Amex. So 10,000 is possible, especially by 2030.
Yeah, I mean, I saw a few people, not Brighton fans, neutral fans, quite a lot of Palace fans as well, so take it with a pinch of salt, saying that the women's team only get around 2,000-3,000 at the Broadfield, which is a valid thing to say. But personally, I've never been to a Brighton women game, not because I don't want to go, but because it's in Crawley, and getting there from this area, East Sussex, Hastings, Bexhill, Eastbourne, where quite a lot of Brighton fans are from, is a big faff. It could take up to 2 hours with traffic and so on all the motorways, the dual carriageways. So with it being next to the Amex, being right in Brighton, I think that could definitely help increase attendances. And if they do play it a little bit like cricket in terms of the double headers that they usually do a women's game before, a men's game after. If that could be scheduled like that, or the other way around, men's before, women's after. But usually with the schedule, I think women's games are in the mornings, in the earlier. So if they did a women's game at 12:30, then a men's game at 8 o'clock, that could definitely help increase attendances. And then they can do tickets, joint tickets, something like that. So just it being in Brighton, I think, will help massively increase attendances, because now I think it'll be a lot easier for people like myself to go, which I definitely will be once it opens.
Yeah, no, I definitely think so. I think that was the main concern of where would it be, and there's a lot of discussions if it would be like in the centre of Brighton, like the city centre, or in Falmer, and people were like, well, it makes the most sense to have it by the Amex. I was speaking to some fans, funnily enough, one of our university assessments, and then the news came out literally a day after I filmed, and I was like, well, it's old news now, but it was nice to ask them just before the actual news got confirmed of where they would have liked to have seen the stadium, and they said, I can't see it anywhere else other than right by the Amex, and lo and behold, the model, which I'm sure you've got on your thumbnail for this video, literally shows it situated like adjacent or pretty much next to the Amex, which is brilliant because, as you mentioned, then lots of fans, especially if the games are on the same day, can go to one and then maybe try the other. And also it's far more accessible for people to get to with the trains and everything. So I just think it's nicer. Like, I was speaking to one of the fans and he said he's around, I don't know exactly where he lived, but he mentioned it was somewhere right in Brighton's like heart, and he said it takes around an hour for him to get to, if the buses are all running smoothly, to go to Crawley, and then when he goes home it's about an hour and a half. So in total, he said, I'm out of the house for about 6 hours, you know. So it's a real commitment, I think, that some of the Brighton Women's fans are making, and it's impressive to see and it's brilliant to see, and why shouldn't they? If you're an avid fan, they're happy to go and support the women's game, but also it is, as you mentioned, like the travel and everything. So hopefully this way it's going to make it a lot more easy for other fans to sort of get involved.
Yeah, for sure. If you want to get new fans in, you need to make it as easy as possible, which I think this does. My only concern is still the transport and the travel a little bit, because as many Brighton fans and Premier League fans will know, getting out of Brighton, getting out of the Amex Falmouth on the train after a game is an absolute disaster. Sometimes it can take up to 3-4 hours just to get onto the train. The cars as well. I park in the university car park around the back. That can sometimes take an hour to get out of. So just little things that need to be looked at. Obviously, Brighton can't do much because they don't own Southern Rail, but and South Eastern, but they need to try and work with those train companies to try and see what they can do. I mean, people have been saying on Twitter, Tony Bloom build a monorail to Brighton. That'd be insane if that happens. But I mean, it definitely helped. That something like that is probably needed to make this work as best as it can. But I guess we shall see. This has been a problem for Brighton for many, many years. And as we know, the trains aren't great anywhere in the world. So it kind of just is what it is at the moment. But hopefully they'll figure something out.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think with the investment that Tony Bloom's making with the women's stadium and sort of wanting it to be all their own money as well that they're using for, you never know, monorail could come at some point. And I'm sure we'll come on to, as I mentioned, about them fully basically funding the stadium. But no, I think with the transport, hopefully, if the game's on sort of at the same time, I know was a suggestion which I wouldn't want at all, because if a men's game's on at the same time as a women's, a lot of the time we've seen that the fans will go to the men's. So I'm hoping that won't be the case, because then it'll be even more crazy for the trains. And if it is to be on different days, potentially the women's games to the men's, if finally they start moving the women's from all being at the same time on a Sunday at 12 to sort of distributing them maybe a little bit more, then as well, I don't think it'll be too hectic, that train situation which you mentioned, because there'll only be around 10,000 fans of women's going out there. So maybe that'll help them, at least it won't be as bad. But in general as well, I'm sure we'll come on to the facilities, but just a little bit about that and sort of, as you say, accommodating people and all the queues. I know a big thing about this women's stadium, which specifically the sort of slogan going along with it is built for her, which is all about women's focus and everything. And I think it's brilliant because a lot of people say when you go to games, the queues for the loos, for example, something really small and people think is insignificant, but it does impact our experience so long at men's games if you go to them. And yeah, I think by having a women's stadium, there's obviously going to be more access for women's toilets specifically. I know they mentioned about more disability access as well, which is brilliant for the demographic of fans we have in the women's game. So yeah, there's so many different elements, I think, that this specific stadium now is going to bring in. And that will, again, attract more fans, but also just make the experience better for all of those loyal ones who are going out to Broadfield, for years at stadiums which weren't really built for them.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think you do have to give quite a lot of thanks and credit to Crawley for letting the women's team use the Broadfield. I know Brighton look after the pitch for the women's side at the Broadfield, but still Crawley have been very, very good in terms of helping the women's team play there. But as you said, Tony Bloom and Brighton are looking to fund the whole thing themselves, around 75, 80 million pounds, which is great. I mean, if someone externally wanted to help the funding, I don't think they'd say no, because it helps and they can make it even better. But Tony Bloom, in my opinion, is the best chairman, best owner in the Premier League, in English football. No one else has done this so far. It is the only stadium at this time of recording in the UK and Europe, the only purpose-built women's stadium, which coming from Tony Bloom isn't really a surprise, to be honest, because he's always looking what's next, not just what is now, what's the best for now. 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, 50 years time, when he's gone, how is he going to leave the club in the best place? And this is exactly how that's going to happen. But yeah, talk to me a bit more about the facilities, including the bridge. I really like the idea of the bridge.
Yeah. No, firstly, it is really commendable. And like you saying, he's one of the best chairmen probably in England, or I don't know about the world. Obviously, I'm not too clued up on that. But as you say, he's top because he actually does really care. I get that impression anyway when he talks about the women's game. And as you say, wanting to leave Brighton in a better place. So it's really exciting. And I hope other clubs sort of follow in their footsteps, because just a quick point I wanted to add on that is you're sort of seeing in the Women's Super League a lot of teams moving from a ground which isn't theirs, which they're sharing with, a lower league club like Brighton Women are doing with Crawley, and it's nice and it accommodates them, but it's sort of out of the way and it's not really associated at all with the club. And then they're sort of taking this jump either from staying in those little stadiums like Chelsea Women, for example, playing at Kings Meadow, and then moving on to try and get into the men's stadium. And I think next season Chelsea Women are playing all of their WSL games at Stamford Bridge. Now it's fair and it's trying to grow the initiative and it's trying to grow a bigger fan base they can compete with the likes of the crowds at the Emirates with Arsenal Women. But I also don't think it's necessarily like even jump. They're sort of going so high and it's, I don't know, maybe not quite feasible, whereas I think Brighton Women making an actual purpose-built women's stadium at a smaller capacity, which is more suitable for the fan base at the moment and also can expand, is just brilliant. So I'm hoping maybe there'll be less of those ideas of jumping to a men's stadium and trying to make it their own than making something exactly for what women's players and women's fans need. But no, the facilities themselves I think are going to be brilliant. As I mentioned, there's more disability access. There was something to do with, I think it was like changing rooms or something to do with like baby changing rooms, because of course the women's fan base is primarily like family orientated, so there'll be a lot more to do with that. Obviously the pitch as well, they're trying to look at it for how it can accompany female bodies, so to try and prevent more injuries, which I think is amazing, and I definitely need to look into more of the science behind it. But they're doing all of this, and as you say, it's all funded at the moment by Brighton themselves, so it just really shows that they don't really want or don't need support from anyone else. This is their pure thing that they want to do. And yeah, I just think every aspect of it will be great. The way it looks as well, it's obviously going to be blue, which I think has been something that whenever I go to Broadfield I feel, it's a bit out of place for the Brighton fans dressed in all their blue and white scarves and then they're sitting in red seats, but of course that's been how it was for a while, and yeah, eventually to have actual blue seats in a stadium that looks like the Amex almost will be lovely.
Yeah, for sure. I read something this morning about there's going to be buggy parks as well, which I think is fantastic. Obviously that helps mothers, of course, but it also encourages the younger generation as well to try and get them into football, because now you can take younger children to games, which is another way that you're going to grow the women's game, going to grow football in general. So I really like that idea as well. And of course, as I mentioned just a second ago, the bridge that links the Amex to the women's stadium, I really like that idea. I'm not sure how it's going to be used there yet, because obviously the planning is still in the initial planning. They've still got to get permission, but if it's easy access between the two stadiums, whether that be for fans or just players and staff, I do like that idea. Because if there is men and women's games on the same day, women's players can go straight across the Amex and vice versa. Men's players can go straight across easily to the women's stadium, and hopefully that'll engage and grow a little bit more.
Yeah, that's true. I also think, I know this is a really tedious point, but for children, like even me, I'm like a grown adult now, but I still feel like a child. I just want to run across that bridge. So it's like another thing with the children where you'll just literally want to use it in any sort of capacity. And as you say, if it links the two different teams as well, and that's great, and for staff, as you mentioned as well. So no, I just really like the idea. A bridge, I'm never going to say no to a bridge. I think they're quite cool. And yeah, it's just an efficient way of getting people from A to B. And I think also they're now talking about putting an underground car park as well, which I'm sure we'll come on to as a little bit of a negative or a bit of a concern. But at least where they've taken the car park and they're going to put the stadium on it, they're now trying to find other places for vehicles to go, and sort of that interesting sort of underground style is some other part of their project.
Yeah, we'll go on to that right now. When you first sent me the images, my first big concern was the parking and the travel getting in, because as we know, as I said, the trains are awful, but also getting out in a car sometimes can take a long time. And if you are taking away quite a few car parking spaces, that could cause jams elsewhere, cause longer queues because more people are trying to park in the same place. And obviously it takes away car parking spots, so surely that would mean less people are going. But the coach park is still going to be there, which I really, really like, because, again, a lot of people that I know and have seen around the Amex always take the coach to home games and away games, but definitely to home games. Always, all the time, every game, which is fantastic. There's a bit of community there, and if that's going to be the case for the women's games as well, which it is at the Broadfield, I believe, again, that helps people get to the games. And as you said, the underground car park, great idea. Again, I think that's going to be around a few thousand as well. The more cars you have, the more people, the more supporters you can get into grounds, and that's exactly what you need when you're trying to grow something.
Yeah, for sure. I think it gives those different people access, because for me, I'm always going to drive. Thankfully, with media, I think the car park is still there, Bridge car park. But in general, I think it is helpful that people have that choice, because originally I was thinking, well, is everyone going to have to go via train now because it's right by the Amex and right by Falmouth Station? It makes the most sense. But actually, as you mentioned, it allows other people to arrive however they like to. And hopefully it will be a bit like, I know with Wembley, they've sort of got, not an underground car park, but it's got that same sort of system where you have to filter out. And thankfully there, the queues aren't too bad when you leave. So hopefully it'll be the same with the Amex. And yeah, it'll provide easy access and different ways that people can get to the stadium.
Yeah, for sure. And we've spoken, everything we said is all about growth, and it looks like that is what they're trying to do, and that's exactly what they are trying to do. On that note, I'm going to jump away just for a second from the women's team, but supposedly Brighton's under-21s and youth teams can also use that stadium, which is someone who likes scouting, likes transfers, likes looking at younger players and how they could develop. I think that'd be great if you can get more people to academy games and grow that as well along with the women's game. Again, it would help Brighton with revenue, helps get money in, and I think in England we have quite an issue with the being less competitive at an academy level. Other teams, especially America, when you look at their academies and their college basketball, college football, they get crowds of 20,000 people watching a college game, which if you can get that over here, surely that will only help players adapt to the atmosphere of bigger games in men's football. Yeah, if the younger teams can use the stadium, I think that's great as well.
Yeah, sorry, I don't know if that was a door slamming in my house. But no, agreed. I think it will definitely help. And also it'll attract hopefully more players over as well. I don't know how academies work with sort of, as you say, that scouting process. You know, it's not up to them, but it definitely is an attractive point if you're going to have massive crowds like they do out in America. And I wasn't aware it was around 20,000. That's incredible. Because I know, like, for example, with City, it's like they have around 3,000 at the Academy Stadium, which is where the women play their games. They've got this sort of thing like Brighton are building, where that same stadium accommodates the Academy and the women's side. But it's only a few thousand. So, yeah, hopefully it'll kind of grow the game. And it also, I think, is just a massive community feel as well. If you think about the Academy, the men's team and the women's team all being in the same place, all sort of sharing the facilities, because, of course, the terrace, which is like the fan zone, and the training ground and everything is going to sort of remain the same. The ticket offices they're not building anymore, which I think is a smart move. You don't have to if they're in the same area. I think it just creates a real like community, and I don't think there's much out there like it. As I say, City is very similar. They have a bridge from the academy to all the different training grounds to the Etihad Stadium, but there aren't many out there like that, and I think Brighton is a really special place with what they're managing to do. And I don't know if we'll come on to it, but quickly a point I was going to mention, which is actually quite big in terms of the stadium and what it's going to do. Obviously, they're saying it's for European football. So for the women's side, obviously, their aspirations are not just to make a big stadium for the next few years for the fan base. It's also for the players themselves to be playing in Europe and to have sort of a stadium that welcomes that sort of stage and that big prospect. And I think also to get to that level of European football, hopefully the team is going to become even better and more, got more quality than it has now. And I think having this women's purpose-built stadium in the future, it's going to attract a lot of more exciting players, which is a really, really big prospect and a big step that Brighton are going to make, hopefully, from having a few key players. Like when you watch them this season, Fran Kirby is massive for them, Kiko Seike. When either of those are out, you really see the quality dip in an attacking sense for Brighton. Their defence is amazing, and we've seen that as sort of the foundation they build upon. But even then, some of those players will move on, like Caitlin Hayes, for example. Welcome Inami's been a great signing. If anyone listening out here has no clue, fair, but if you do obviously know the players I'm referring to, there are some real quality players in there and some decent signings that Brighton have made, but the next level up obviously is to bring in more players of the quality of Fran Kirby, and hopefully at a younger age, because of course she's not getting any younger. She's admitted that herself. So I definitely think for Brighton this will really attract some of the world's top players.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, I mean, hopefully as well, it will attract a lot of course it will attract the stereotypical media, but if you can get content creators down there as well, that's going to push it out to a different audience. If Brighton are happy for it to be that accessible, that's only going to help grow it as well. Better players, better stadium, better facilities. Brighton could be the hub. That's what they want. Brighton want to be the hub for being the best at everything. And Tony Bloom has done a fantastic job so far. Fantastic is an understatement, to be honest. He's done the best job he possibly can. He literally can't do any better so far. But I think that is everything, unless there is anything else you want to talk about on that.
I don't think so. No, it's just an exciting future. I think what Brighton have managed to do, especially with their women's team, just on what they've had, to now, moving forward and hopefully pushing these teams, these established top four sides, which obviously they most recently beat with Arsenal and City, which I think is a perfect time now to announce this next development. It's just really exciting. And yeah, we need something new. We need a new team breaking in. And what better than Brighton, as you say, they actually care a lot about the investment, and it's proving what you can do if you invest right in the women's game. So no, that was my last sort of case in point there.
Yeah, absolutely perfect way to finish it. Obviously, it is still a few years away from being built, a good 4 years or so maximum. Hopefully, it won't be any longer than that. They get the planning permission done as soon as possible. Then hopefully there will be some videos on this channel as well. We will see how that goes. A long, long time until that can happen. But yeah, thank you very much, Annabel, for coming on. Absolutely perfect expertise on this subject. And yeah, we will see you very, very soon for another podcast, which will probably be the most embarrassing episode we have ever done, reacting to our Premier League predictions. To be fair, I think some of them do look good. The crazy ones look good, but some of the logical ones look quite bad, which is going to be interesting come then. But we won't spoil it anymore. I'll see you, myself, next week for another video. Hopefully that'll be a tactics video. That is what I'm aiming for. Haven't done one of them for a couple of weeks. But don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, share, do whatever you want with the video. However you're going to make it blow up, that'll be fantastic. But you know the outro by now. Do it with me. Adios.